Katie, bring me up to speed. What happened today, and what does it mean?
So Terrence Bradley retook the witness stand after he had a 90-minute conversation behind closed doors yesterday with Judge Scott McAfee in Fulton County. During those 90 minutes, from what we learned today, Judge McAfee explored a very specific carve-out when it came to otherwise privileged communications between Terrence Bradley and his former client, Nathan Wade. Terrence Bradley used to be the divorce attorney for Nathan Wade. But what has come out after almost 2 hours of persistent questioning of Mr. Terrence Bradley is the following. Terrence Bradley has zero, and I want to emphasize zero, personal knowledge as to when any personal relationship between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis began. Why is that important? Well, this is a continuation of an evidentiary hearing. And I can say this to you, Nicole, there is a word in Yiddish for Terrence Bradley, and that is yenta. He is a gossip. He's a busybody. And as a yenta, he has passed along idle gossip about a relationship between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. That is all. But gossip and innuendo do not make evidence, despite what the defense wants to happen in this case. And if you think about it, we've gone back to square one, which was at the close of the evidence almost 2 weeks ago. Judge McAfee had only heard from one person who disputed the timeline offered up by Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. And that one person is a former friend of Fani Willis and a former employee who I have and others have kind of construed as being a disgruntled former employee, Nicole. But this is just a highlight of how far afield we've gone from the purpose of this hearing. We have now moved on from there is no evidence of personal financial benefit to Fani Willis to when did this relationship begin, because there suddenly became a focus on whether perjury had been committed by Wade and Willis. But if you're Judge McAfee, yes, you look at the credibility of the people that are testifying, who have all taken the same oath to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. But as of right now, there is no evidence that Terrence Bradley has offered up as to the date, as to when that relationship began. And so did Terrence Bradley lie? He said he doesn't have any information, and he's also a member of the Georgia Bar, just like Fani Willis and Nathan Wade.
What's really going on here?
Well, just big picture to catch you up. There's an indictment that is incredibly long and incredibly detailed, and everything that is going on in this hearing.
A whole bunch of people had flipped on Trump before I went on leave.
A bunch of people have pleaded guilty, and a bunch of people are awaiting trial, a date that has not been set, for charges that are really overlap and are similar to the ones in the D.C. federal case. That is what the case is about.
Right.
That is what the country should care about. And whether government, whether it's the state or the feds, can prove their case. This is a sideshow. The main culprit for this sideshow is the judge. Not that he's partisan, just really new. The issue of when did an affair begin? Whether you went Dutch or not, which is what he says he cares about, is about paltry sums. And the whole idea
That's what this is about, whether you split
it's
mail?
whether, exactly. This is the theory. Did you hire someone knowing that they would have a contract? You would go out with them, they would pay for some of the meals or trips, and you would benefit from that. And that kind of claim is not a claim that, even if true, is so insignificant, and it would be something for maybe an ethics office to say, slap you on the hand and say, you know what, make sure you keep better records and you split costs. It's not a disqualification issue. So I really don't blame the defense. The defense is supposed to raise these kinds of issues. And just to be fair, the hearing then became a bit of a hot mess. That's the polite term.
All these technical legal terms.
Yes,
I really
exactly.
appreciate you guys today.
And so it really has become about whether there's a cover-up. And to be fair to the defense,
covering up, the conspiracy goes like this, that she planned to have an affair with the second person she planned to hire to help with the case, and then he would buy her half of a meal?
Well, she and he have said, no, when Wade was hired, there was no relationship going on. That's a contested issue. Second, they have said they roughly split the costs. That's a contested issue because there aren't a lot of hard records for that, hence all this information about cash and how that worked. To be fair to the defense today with respect to Mr. Bradley, there were communications between Mr. Bradley and the defense where he apparently sent texts, God knows why he was doing it, but to the defense counsel saying, I know that they were having an affair before Wade was hired. Well, that's directly contrary to what Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade testified to. And so he said that, and he said, I absolutely know that that's true. So they have that as a message. So, you know, it's fair for them to call him, but then he testifies and says, I was purely speculating. Now, the judge is going to have to make a decision about whether that's credible or not, but you realize that this has sort of gone down this rabbit hole from an incredibly historic, important indictment. And even if this all ends up going well for the Georgia prosecutor, there's this taint that I think was needlessly inflicted by a judge who might be very well intentioned, but I think was really inexperienced in terms of having this kind of hearing.